What if I told you Xenoblade's best feature has seemingly been forgotten? But is the story as simple as that? Or is there something much deeper going on here? To find out more, we must venture out on a journey of crossroads and decisions made at those crossroads. Moments in time when decisions are made and how each game changes from one entry to the next. Let's talk Xenoblade Chronicles. Xenoblade Chronicles, originally released as a JRPG on the Wii of all things, set in the world of the Bionis and the Mechonis, it drew players in with its unique setting, but also its lovable characters as they struggled in a world where the cards seemingly were stacked against them, as they hopelessly at times fought against fate to create a future all of their own. It was heartwarming, emotional, thrilling, and overall a great story, with numerous different characters with different styles of play. You felt like small ants in a world far larger than you had any right to explore. Enter the era of the Wii U, and Monolith released a game named Xenoblade Chronicles X, set on an alien world of Mirror. You must reclaim pieces of the White Whale, a spacefaring ship humanity used to escape being caught in the middle of an alien war, navigate a strange new planet, and establish a new home for all humankind. It's a spin-off, for lack of a better word, and wasn't connected to the story of Xenoblade 1 outside of some Easter eggs, like the hair clips the character Lyn uses being in the shape of the Monado, the weapon of the main character Shulk from Xenoblade 1. Cut to a few years later, and the Nintendo Switch releases, to great acclaim, and Monolith come out swinging with a new numbered entry in the Xenoblade franchise, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Set in the world of all rest, a giant sea of clouds envelops the planet. Yet, atop these clouds swim giant titans where humanity and other forms of life have managed to carve out various homes, villages, and empires, combined with a more anime art style and a revamped combat system focused way more on combos and lengthy chain attack sequences. The game really helped spearhead Xenoblade into the spotlight for the Switch. A definitive edition of Xenoblade 1 is subsequently released, with an additional story entitled Future Connected, with many of the core features that made up Xenoblade Chronicles 1's gameplay remaining. Xenoblade 3 was announced and released set in the world of Ionios. Two warring factions, Agnes and Keves, wage a perpetual war that has engulfed the entire world. Two groups of 3 soldiers from each faction must accept their differences and break the world from this cycle after gaining the power to do so as the newest members of a group named Ouroboros that allowed them to combine into giant interlinked forms, giving them the power to change the world. Now, why am I telling you this? What does this have to do with one feature? The point is that each Xenoblade game is wildly different, not just in setting or story, but also in its gameplay elements. You can tell from playing one game to the next in chronological order of release what features they thought worthy of bringing over to the next, what they wanted to leave behind or add to the series, or what should undergo revisions. No two games feel the exact same. Significant iterations and sometimes wholesale features are added or removed to make each game stand up on its own. Going from Xenoblade 1 and X to Xenoblade 2 and 3, you see the removal of what I call the line approach, where all your abilities are placed upon one line, on almost something that resembles a hotbar from an MMORPG on the PC. Your arts are migrated to buttons mapped on the controller, X, Y, and B, and up, left, down. Going from Xenoblade 2 to 3, you see what was once a series predicated upon you only controlling one party member at a time, move to a style where you can swap party members in combat seamlessly, which becomes the core pillar of Xenoblade 3's combat system and loop. Side quests as a whole go from what was once innumerous in number, yet very MMO in design, with fetch quests, kill quests, and go talk to X character quests, move to lengthy quest chains filled with pseudo cutscenes and character development. A larger emphasis is placed on the story instead of the affinity system for the side quests moving forward outside of Xenoblade 1. But the forgotten feature that I want to talk about is one that has only appeared in one Xenoblade game, and has never been seen again. Well, that was true until Xenoblade 3 released, but the feature had undergone so many alterations and changes that it could hardly be called the same feature at all. Let's take a step back, and venture back to the world of Mirror in Xenoblade Chronicles X. Being a Wii U exclusive already excluded a lot of players from ever picking the game up, and while I personally love the console, the game is probably, and by a wide margin at that, the least known about and least played Xenoblade game in the franchise. That doesn't mean it's a bad game. In fact, I'm loving the game as I'm playing through it, again, in my effort to beat it. But even then, the focus of the game was on its mechanics in lieu of a complex, deep, and compelling narrative like in Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. The story is still cool, but it's not on the levels of the other 3 games. The game was also in a purely sci-fi setting and had no small number of giant robots, or Skells as they are called in-game. And once you beat Chapter 6 of the story, something interesting happens. You are notified that you now have access to go earn a Skell license, all of your own. You undergo a series of trials that all culminate in you being given your very own Skell, and it is at this moment in the game where everything you know about how to play is turned on its head. The mobility you get from this thing is unparalleled in the rest of the franchise. It jumps high and far, can transform into a vehicle mode, which is excellent if you ever need to move in a straight line, while also having a turn radius equivalent to the length of the US-Canadian border. But in such an open and spaced out world, this sudden mobility is a breath of fresh air, allowing you to traverse the world in a way that you simply couldn't before. Once seemingly unreachable locations or unscalable cliffs become easily traversable, as you gain access to a whole new side of Mira you never could see or interact with before. It's also highly customizable for combat, allowing you to swap out various weapon systems and installments to acquire different arts or abilities to be used in combat, allowing you to tackle far more difficult mobs than you could before, while also attracting attention of creatures who brushed you off as insignificant little humans before but now see you as a threat because you're a giant freaking robot. It not only changes the way you tackle the open world in terms of mobility and just walking around it, but opens up additional combat options for you, the player, with new ways to play and new ways to customize the Skell. It's an entire pillar of the gameplay that is simple on the surface, but with numerous layers of complexity buried beneath. It changes the way you fundamentally play Xenoblade X. And the reason I find it so brilliant of a feature is because it has more than one utility. It's not just for mobility, it's not just for combat. You can use it for both. You use it to fight mobs you couldn't before, you use it to reach places you couldn't before, you use it to traverse places at a far faster rate than you could before. You gain a sense of freedom where once you were bound by the walls and restrictions that some of the cliffs posed to you before, you now can jump over them, find ways to maneuver around them. You are given a chance to spread your wings and to fly around. Quite literally later on in the game when you get your freaking flight license, by the way. But the point is, it's one of those moments in gaming that completely changes how you look at the game and the world that you're in after many hours of gameplay. Few games have evoked this sense of wonderment that the Skell mechanic has for me in X. Few games change the entire way you interact with it this far into it. And it's a really cool idea, it's a really cool feature in my opinion. And it doesn't feel arbitrary, it doesn't feel jarring, it fits right on in with what Xenoblade X offers. And then you go to the next game in the series, which is Xenoblade 2, and you don't have anything like that. Which is fine. Xenoblade 2 is my favorite game in the franchise for many reasons. And I'm not even sure if the Skell mechanic would work in that game. But it is absent all the same. And you cut to Xenoblade 3, and remember that interlink mechanic I mentioned before? Well, it definitely feels inspired from the Skells of X. It's this central pillar of the game that you unlock after some time that lets you tackle the gameplay in completely new ways and gives you more confidence to tackle higher level mobs. It's a really great system, but you can only utilize its effects in the combat, not the open world. The open world utility that you gained from a Skell is nowhere to be seen in the franchise outside of X. Okay, so you do get a boat in Xenoblade 3 so you can ride around Erythia Sea for a bit, which is really cool, but it's still it's still restricting in comparison to what the Skell offered you. But here's my underlying point. Xenoblade Chronicles is a series defined by each entry being unique to one another, and that is fine. That is the strength of the series in my opinion. No two games feel too similar to one another, so I never get bored of the franchise. They each go for and try something new, and they all largely succeed in what they set out to do. Heck, Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 are all in my top 10 games of all time, and I still have never beaten X. I am working on that, by the way. But when we are talking about the future of the franchise, a franchise whose main recognizable trait is its large, unique, and breathtaking worlds and set pieces, leaving behind a mechanic like the Skells that lets you engage in that world in a completely different way and make it feel fresh and new is a little sad to me. It's a great feature, one that has vague traces that continue to hold on for dear life with the interlinked system of 3, but one whose full breadth and uniqueness seems to have largely been left behind and almost forgotten in a sense. I would love to explore the world of Xenoblade 3 through the eyes of an interlinked form, giving me access to places unreachable before, or giving me that sense of speed unobtainable before. Imagine how cool it could be if you could pilot Siren in Xenoblade 2, for instance, or even Ophion and swim around the world tree, or jump on the back of Araya's Titan, or reach the head of Gormott. Yeah, sure, that's not what these games set out to do, but it would be a very interesting and unique feature that lends itself to the formula of Xenoblade's open world, in terms of its feeling that you can go anywhere, explore these giant, extravagant, and unique worlds. I love that sense of exploration the game evokes, and I would love to see it more reinforced through the gameplay. It's still great without it, but it's such a cool and unique idea that I don't want to see it relegated to the annals of the Wii freaking U. Whether it's through a definitive edition of X, a sequel to X, or in Xenoblade 4, I'd love to see a return of this feature of the gameplay that made the experience of Xenoblade X so special to me. Navigating these large and open environments that Monolith craft with each game would be way more engaging to me if I, as the player, were given tools that were as unique and breathtaking as the world that I'm exploring. Plus, let's be honest, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know I will never say no to a giant freaking robot. And with that, I'm going to end the video for the day. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And if you want to be notified for future videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified for when I upload in the future. Leave a comment down below with what feature from a previous Xenoblade game, or even 3, would you like to see brought back or continue into the future? I would love to hear your thoughts and hear your perspective. And if you disagree with me on the Skells system, I'd love to hear your thought and hear your perspective as well. So leave a comment down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Stay safe out there, everybody. Have a great day. I'm Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.